Hi, it's Nancy with Icon Apprentice, and thank you so much for joining us again. This may be our final portion for St. Mary Magdalene. We'll have to see how far we get on this. It's possible we may do one more. But we're going to start on the flesh tonight. We've done our highlighting on the robe, and we've got that pretty much where we want it. And now we're going to put some gold oxide on her hair. Then we'll start working in on the flesh. Now, there are a couple of different paints that you actually can't buy already pre-made. There's a mix that we use for the flesh colors. The first one, of course, was the Sankir, which was the olive green and the gold oxide mixed together. The second coat on the flesh, which we're going to call Flesh 1, is going to be a tangerine color, and I want you to be able to see how orange this looks. This is created, by taking Napthol Red Light and Turner's Yellow and mixing them until you get this nice pretty orange tangerine color. The next color that we're going to put on, after that's all dried, we have that all built up, is going to be called Flesh 2, and Flesh 2 is a yellowish kind of looking paint. It's used with the yellow oxide and a little bit of raw sienna. Once we get that on, if we feel like we need additional highlights, we'll take this Flesh number 2 and we'll add a little bit of unbleached titanium to that for each subsequent highlight until we get the look that we desire. So the first thing I wanted to do tonight is let's go ahead on our icons and let's put the gold oxide on the hair and get that set up, because it's going to give us a nice framework for us to get going on her flesh, on her face. If you feel like you can't see the outline, you actually can buy tracing paper that's white, and you can lay down our drawing that's on the tracing paper, and you'll be able to see it so good through here, and you can reestablish those lines if you need to with drawing paper. If you can still see them but you think you need just a little bit of help, use a small piece of white chalk or maybe a little white pencil. You can buy the pencils with the white lead, and you can just very lightly reestablish some of those lines. If you have any problems, you can always contact me, leave a comment at the bottom here on YouTube, or you can go to my website, iconapprentice.com, and there's a place there where you can email me, let me know what the problem is, and we can actually talk, and I can go through it with you. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to get ready here to lay in colors on her hair. And we're going to be using on her hair some burnt umber shadows, and then we're going to be applying 2 kind of thin coats of burnt sienna. But we want to be careful, we don't want her to end up with some orange hair. So we'll take a little bit of this, get our paintbrush damp, put in a couple of drops of our flow medium, and mix this up because we want to get a nice creamy light mixture. That'll give us a start here. All right. So again, nice thin milky consistency. Okay. And I am using my larger brush. I might go down to a smaller one. Let's try this one and see. So the first thing that we're going to do is start laying in some features. So we'll do her nose first. And with this tangerine color, we are actually going to be covering almost everything. You can see I'm kind of coming around. She's got a little eyebrow there. And I'm going to leave that eyebrow there. That'll be one thing that I won't cover. But I am going to do her eyelids. I'm not quite connecting them to the nose. I'm going to leave that nose just a little bit open there. And if you look, the nose is, think of the nose as shaped kind of like a fish. So you kind of have the tail at the top, so it's a little bit wider at the top. You come down, and then the head, just a little roundness at the head, and then connect the nostril here. And then we have her mouth. Now, underneath the nose, there is always going to be just a little tiny shadow under the nose. We're not going to leave that completely dark this time, but it is going to be fairly dark. So we'll put a little bit on it. And then when you come around on her top of her eyebrows, don't quite touch the tail of the fish. Oh, there, the top of her nose. And then come around her eyebrow, just like that. Usually at this point, I turn it upside down because I'm going to be starting, and I'm going to come and spread this paint just like this right up into her hairline. If I need to, if it's a little bit too much paint, I'm just going to wipe it off and come back in. And I'm not quite taking it all the way to the hairline. I'm leaving just a little bit out there, a little bit of darkness, okay? Turn it around. A little bit more. We're going to come right up here then into the eye area. Again, I'm not going to quite touch that nose. And I'm going to bring it right underneath here. And you can see it's kind of building up there a little bit. I just wipe my, come around here, wipe that paintbrush off, and then just start pulling that out. Just pulling that out almost all the way. Pulling this down. I've already got the mouth outlined. There's also going to be just a little bit of a shadow underneath the mouth. Like I said, we're going to put a tiny coat on it right here, but it's not going to be completely covered. Let's go all the way down to the chin and pull this out. A little bit right here. And then she does have an ear. It's a little bit hard to see here. It's right in here where the hair. So it's like a little dot, a comma, and a little dot. Come down a little bit further. And there's her ear. So a little dot at the top, like a comma, come down and put on the earlobe. There's her ear. Okay. Kind of start to see the flesh coming out. I am so sorry that I am hitting this camera tonight. I don't know what my problem is. And these are really light strokes. I mean, like really light. Leave a touch of a shadow there. Very light strokes. Clean off your brush and just fan that out a little bit. If you think it's too heavy, take your finger, just touch. Just touch. And we just want to be very careful as we're doing this not to go back in and rework too much, because again, we're going to start lifting that paint if we do that. Go ahead and under the chin, leave a tiny line there. We're going to cover most of this up to her hair and right on into, right next to her collar there, her veil. If you look at the color copy, the colors are kind of sweeping this way, so you can dry off your, see how quickly this is starting to set up. Just dab that off. And she has a little tiny bit of flesh showing right here, so don't forget that part right in there, so that it looks as if it's peeking right out through her hair there. So hopefully you can see how Mary's face is starting to appear for us. And we'll start on her fingers. Again, I'm using this large brush. If you feel more confident in the smaller one, go ahead and use the smaller one, but as long as you've got a nice tip on your large brush, you should be fine to paint with that. I'm just leaving a tiny bit of space between this finger and the inner hand here. Just a tiny bit. I just want some definition on where that is. Tiny shadow that will give me a little bit of definition to this hand as we come back in and start laying in more layers. So where you see those lines that we drew, give it just a little bit of space. Don't cover that up completely. Hopefully you can see how that hand is looking. You can see by the shadow. So you can kind of see by the way that the light shines on the wet paint how I laid that in, and you can tell there's just very faintly the lines that we had drawn on her hand we can still see. That's kind of what we're looking for. That way we don't completely lose our road map. Remember, these fingers in here are very short because it's just her fingertips. Probably be smart to lay this finger in first. Turn this around a little bit. go. Once again, kind of try to keep all the fingers differentiated so that you're not covering it up completely. If it gets a little streaky, don't worry. We are going to be putting multiple layers on here, so I don't want you to get freaked out if it's a little bit streaky. We're okay. Looking good. How many coats, she asks? A lot. I'm conservative when I put my coats of paint on. It's possible I'll do 4 coats of this tangerine color before I move on to the next. We want it fairly bright, and hopefully you'll be able to see what I mean whenever we get next couple of coats on. We'll take a look and see where we think we are with this. If you look at the color copy of her hand, this is going to be right here, lighter, and then it fades down. So in the palm of her hand is not going to be quite as bright. Get a little bit lighter. And then again, it starts getting a little bit brighter out here. You just want the suggestion. It'll be brighter here, and we'll start building that up with other colors as we go along. Also right here, like on the rounded part of the hand, is going to be brighter than the others. And don't forget, remember we talked about how you're going to less is more. This is a really bright area. The ball of the thumb is a really bright area. So this is brighter, and let it fade. Brighter, let it fade. Wipe your brush off if you think you got too much happening there, and just work that down. And remember, sometimes side to side is better. And you can see getting somewhere here. That's looking pretty good. So again, I'm not covering the entire thing. Sometimes it's difficult with the fingers to differentiate. We're just shrinking up a little bit when we put that next coat on. And we're looking at the color copy. There's going to kind of be like a little line right here on the back of her hand. And this is going to be very bright in this area, going right across her thumb like this, over to the side. You can see where it kind of cuts the thumb off right in there. If you look at your color copy, let me show you what I'm talking about. When you look at your color copy, and you can see how the top of this hand almost cuts that thumb off, comes straight across. And that's what we're trying to do here. Come straight across like that. And this is going to be a very bright area. Right in, can you see it's kind of a triangle shape almost? This still has brightness, and there's a little shape of a little spot of brightness. But this bright area is almost like a little triangle. And that's where we're going to start working that up, that brightness. My brush was getting just a little bit dry. So I got it wet, cleaned it off. Look what I'm doing. See, I'm lifting. I'm getting a little hole. It's okay. I want you, it's good for you to see that that can happen. That can definitely happen. But don't freak out about it. It'll be okay. Now we've already put one coat on, so what I'm going to suggest is that you leave a tiny little line there. See how I left a little bit dark so that you can actually see there where that thumb and that hand are separate. All right. next flesh color is Flesh 2, and it is this yellow color. And to make that, we take yellow oxide plus raw sienna until we get this nice golden yellow color. And that is going to be our second flesh highlight. And our second flesh then, once we get that on, if we need another one, then we will add some unbleached titanium to that. Got a little bit of spot right here. Just pull that up. Now, this is the icon where I added the white highlights, and you can see this actually, I haven't put nearly as many coats of this orange flesh on as I had to on the wooden panel. This stretched canvas, this is stretched canvas. It is taking the paint in a very different way than what my wooden board is. So if you're painting on the stretched canvas, you may have fewer coats than those of us who are painting on the board. And I'm glad I'm doing this so I kind of know what's happening for you guys. Kind of losing her lip a little bit there. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm losing her lip. That's okay. We'll reinstate that. And then don't worry about the white lines. Those are going to go away because we're going to be outlining all that stuff anyway. If her one eye seems a whole lot bigger than the other eye, that's okay. If you look at your color copy, the eyes are different different sizes. It's because the one side of her face is further away than the other, so I don't want you to get too freaked out about that. All right, so I am going to grab the other icon, get the board here, and we'll start working. And I want you to notice how different their faces look. Oh, can you see that? Can you see how different their faces are going to look? Each icon, I'll tell you, they take on a personality of their own. Even from the same painter, they can look totally different. So now we're going to start with our Flesh 2, and that's our yellow. Get my brush damp, come into the yellow paint, it's Flesh 2. Make sure I have a nice consistency here. I think I'm going to add just a little bit of flow medium to that. About 4 drops out there. So we don't want it too runny, but we want it to flow nicely across our board. All right, I think we're good there. I just roll that up, take off most of that paint, and then remember, less is more. On every subsequent layer of flesh that we lay down, less is more, less is better. So let's just go ahead and we'll start laying in then her nose. We'll do her features first before we go in and do the rest of her face. So we're going to lay in the nose, the lips, the ear. I hope you can see that. Do across the forehead. It's like a little wave. Come down, back up, pull it out. Take this up into the hairline just a little bit. We're not going to go too far. Very thin layer we're going to do around the eyes. Lay in those eyelids. I'm going to brush most of that off, and then I'm just going to pull this up next to the eyebrow. Remember, we haven't painted over that dark eyebrow. We left that very dark. Very thin coat. Bring it over to the ear. And now we're going to come in and we'll do her cheeks. I'm going to do this eye first. Come down by the nose. I'm going to pull that off and spread this out. Nice thin yellow coat. Pull that out. It's a little streaky, don't worry. We are going to do another coat here. Bring that around the lips. And we just want to kind of leave a tiny little outline there around those lips. Come down. Now this hand, you can see, look at the color copy, kind of comes straight across here with that nice highlight. And again, we're working kind of in a triangular effect for these brighter highlights. You can see a lot of this orange is showing out here in the bottom portion of the hand. It's going to have a little bit of the orange peeking through, but we are going to lay some yellow in there. So usually I'll just come in, take it, and go right at the base of the knuckles. Pull that out. And then start spreading. This goes out all the way like that. I wiped most of that off, and I'm just pulling this down, just barely pulling it down, and I'm really not coming all the way because I still want some of that orange to peek through. And then we do have this band of brightness right here. Leave a tiny bit of that. You can see where I worked that, it started to lift just a little bit. I just went back in and pulled some of that on there. All right, we're just going to keep working with this until we start building up the color and getting pretty much where we would like this to be.